So the Warriors just signed Seth. Seth is a sniper. Seth Curry led the entire league in three-point shooting last season, knocking down over 45% of his attempts. That's not just good, that's ridiculous. That percentage was the highest in the NBA, and it's not a fluke. He's been doing this for years. His career three-point percentage is over 43%, which puts him near the top of the all-time leaderboards. So when they added him to this Warriors roster, they weren't just signing another shooter, they were plugging in one of the most consistent long-range weapons in the league. In just 15.5 minutes per game, he averaged 6.5 points. That's pure efficiency. He's not taking 20 shots a night. He's picking his spots, moving off the ball, catching it in rhythm, and letting it fly. And when he lets it fly, it usually goes in. His overall field goal percentage was just under 48%, which means even his 2-point shots are solid. It's all high efficiency, low volume work, which fits perfectly into Golden State's system. The Warriors' offense thrives when the floor is spaced, and Seth Curry warps defense just by being on the court. When he's standing in the corner or sliding off a screen, defenders can't leave him. That opens up everything else. It's not just about him making shots, it's about him dragging defenders away from the lane, pulling attention away from cutters, and giving more room for guys like Jimmy to operate. Throw him out there with Steph Curry, and good luck covering both. Defenses are going to have to make some real uncomfortable choices, and the spacing effect multiplies when he's moving without the ball. This guy's not standing around. He's curling off screens, darting around the arc, resetting in the corner. It's chaos. Add in the fact that he's doing all this next to Steph, and now it's even more unpredictable. They're both high IQ, off-ball threats. And when they're running around in tandem, you can't double anyone. You can't help off either of them. The defense gets pulled apart. Even when Steph's on the bench, Seth gives them a pure shooting presence to keep things humming. The second unit can keep the floor stretched without falling off a cliff. That's been a huge problem in recent years. The moment Steph sits, the scoring dips. But Seth's presence gives the Warriors a way to keep the offense flowing. He can run with bench-heavy lineups and still give them elite shooting efficiency, which keeps the tempo and space alive. Now look at the bigger picture. The Warriors didn't just grab one veteran, they added a handful of guys who know how to play smart, efficient basketball. Melton brings defensive toughness. Al Horford brings experience and spacing at the big spot. Gary Payton II brings perimeter defense and energy. Seth fits right into that mold. Experienced, efficient, and specialized. He knows his role. He's not trying to take 30 shots. He's trying to shoot 45% from deep and keep the spacing perfect. His shooting gravity changes how defenses play the Warriors. In years past, teams could load up on Steph or chase other guys through screens without worrying too much about the other shooters. That's not happening now. If Seth's on the floor, that second defender has to think twice. Leave him alone, and it's automatic. Stick to him, and someone else gets free. That's the kind of pressure elite shooters apply without ever touching the ball. He's not going to start most games, and that's fine. He doesn't need to. They've already got scoring punch at the top. What Seth gives them is that clean, reliable floor, spacing off the bench. He's going to come in, play 15 or 20 minutes, hit 2 or 3 threes, and stretch out the defense. That alone shifts how other teams match up. Now the opposing bench unit has to guard the perimeter, even when the Warrior starters are off the floor. That's a huge edge. And let's not ignore the efficiency side. When you're shooting 45% from deep and almost 48% from the field overall, every shot you take is a good one. He doesn't waste possessions. He doesn't need a ton of dribbles. He doesn't break the flow. He just slides into the offense and hits shots. That kind of plug and play efficiency is rare. What makes it even more wild is that he's doing this as a pure off-ball shooter. He's not breaking guys down off the dribble. He's not isolating. He's just finding the pocket of space, catching the ball, and firing. And because he's so accurate, defenders have to chase him full speed around every screen. That wears teams out. It bends the defense. It creates confusion, all from a guy who might only touch the ball 5 or 6 times in a quarter. The Warriors are betting on IQ and efficiency this year, and Seth fits right in. He's not flashy, he's just lethal, and that makes him dangerous in a different way. He's the guy you forget about until he hits 2 threes in under a minute. And when he does, the entire game changes. Suddenly, the defense has to stretch, rotations get slower, and now there's more space for cutters, more room for drives, and more open looks all around. That ripple effect is the real value. He doesn't need to dominate the ball to dominate a quarter. He can go scoreless and still pull a defender out of the paint for 10 straight minutes. That changes the geometry of the game. And in the Warriors system, where ball movement and spacing are everything, that's pure gold. With Brandon Podds, Buddy Hield, and Melton also floating in that guard rotation, Seth brings a different look. He's not the youngest or the most athletic, but he's the most efficient. And when the game slows down, that matters. When every possession counts, you want someone who turns limited touches into points. That's exactly what Seth's been doing for over a decade. He's played for several teams, and in every single one, his role has been the same. Shoot it when you're open, space the floor, and don't miss. And he delivers. That's not changing now. If anything, playing with Steph just amplifies that. He's never had this much attention on someone else beside him. That means cleaner looks, more space, and even higher chances of hitting that 45% mark again. The numbers are clear. This is not guesswork. Seth Curry is one of the best pure shooters in the league, and now he's joining a team that thrives on spacing, ball movement, and high IQ basketball. He's not here to be a star. He's here to be the guy that keeps the machine running smooth. Every minute he's on the court, the Warriors' spacing gets better. The offense opens up and the scoring becomes more efficient. And all that comes from a guy who plays less than 20 minutes a night. It's not about volume. It's about precision, and Seth Curry brings it every single time, but he is going to help their depth a lot. Seth Curry's addition isn't just about one guy coming in to shoot threes and then vanish into the bench. It's part of a deeper roster shuffle that the Warriors are navigating as they try to keep their championship window cracked open. The team went all in on experience and skill this offseason, and that created a roster that's absolutely stacked with guards, especially shooting guards. There are so many options that even figuring out the rotation is a challenge, but it's also what gives this roster some sneaky depth if you look past the age and height columns. Let's start with the sheer volume of guards. Shooting guard is loaded. Brandon Podds, Buddy Hield, Melton, Gary Payton II, Seth Curry, and now Will Richard. That is 6 players at the same position. And it doesn't even include players like Steph Curry or Jimmy Butler, who can swing into the backcourt depending on the lineup. So Seth isn't walking into a starting spot or even guaranteed bench minutes. He's walking into a position group that's got defenders, slashers, volume shooters, and utility guys, all competing for a slice of court time. But what makes Seth stand out is that he's the most efficient shooter of the entire group. He's not just hitting threes, he's hitting them at a historically elite rate. That 45.6% from 3 last season is not just best on team material, it led the entire league. And his career number, 43.3%. That's better than Steph. It's also better than anyone else in the rotation. So in a crowded backcourt, where everyone's trying to do something different, Seth's identity is crystal clear. He hits threes, and he hits them constantly. Buddy Hield had an up and down season last year, and while he can shoot in volume, the accuracy wasn't always there. Melton is a two-way guy who brings defense, but he's never been known for deadly perimeter shooting. Gary Payton II brings energy and perimeter defense. But again, offensive consistency is not his thing. Podds is still young and figuring out where his strengths translate. Will Richard is just trying to stick on a two-way deal. So even in a crowded room, Seth's skill set is the cleanest fit into a Warrior system that still lives and dies by spacing and ball movement. Now the depth chart doesn't stop there. Go one spot over to small forward and you've got Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody. That's a sharp drop in quantity, but a strong 1-2 punch. Jimmy brings elite two-way play, and Moody's still growing into his role as a shooter and defender. At power forward, Draymond Green leads the way, followed by Jonathan Kuminga, Gui Santos, and Alex Tuhey, who's on a two-way. That's 3 projects and 1 glue guy starter. And then at center, it's Al Horford, Quentin Post, and Trace Jackson Davis. That group gives you experience, shooting, and a bit of youth. Looking at the full roster, it's not balanced. There's a heavy tilt toward guard play and spacing, especially off the bench. And that's the context where Seth Curry adds real depth, not just as another shooter, but as a specialist who brings one elite tool to a team that knows exactly how to use it. The Warrior system is tailor-made for guys like him. They don't need him to dribble, they don't need him to create, and they definitely don't need him to dominate the ball. They need him to run around, get open, and hit shots. That's it. That's the job. Now take a step back and look at how the roster was built. This entire offseason has been about veterans and floor raisers. Seth Curry, Al Horford, and Melton all fall into that category. None of them are 30 minutes a night players anymore, but every single one of them knows how to play in a system, take high-quality shots, and avoid mistakes. Add that to Gary Payton II and Jimmy Butler, and you've got a core of experienced guys who can hold the team steady when things get shaky. The average age of the potential starting lineup is pushing 36. That is not subtle. This is a team built on experience, not youth. Seth Curry is 35, and while that used to mean washed, in NBA terms, for a specialist shooter, It's actually the perfect sweet spot. He knows exactly what his job is. He's not going to try to reinvent himself. He's going to stay healthy, stay ready, and shoot 45% from 3. That said, it's not all sunshine and perfect roster symmetry. The Warriors are very clearly undersized. By the numbers, they're likely to enter the season with at least 8 players who are 6'5" or shorter. That's not ideal. In a league where every team seems to be cloning 6'8" wings who can do everything, Seth Curry doesn't fix that. He doubles down on the existing strength, more shooting, more spacing, less length, less vertical defense. It's a calculated risk. But part of what makes the roster depth interesting is the flexibility of the players around him. Jimmy Butler can handle the ball, so can Brandon Pod. That means Seth Curry can float in the backcourt without having to take on a single possession of playmaking. He's free to roam, free to sprint off screens, free to sit in the corner and make a defense regret leaving him for even 1 second. And that lets the Warriors build some creative bench units around. The other reason his signing matters for the depth picture is financial. His contract, along with Horford and Melton, was held up by the Jonathan Kuminga deal. The Warriors didn't have the financial clarity to move until that situation was finalized. Once Kuminga's contract was resolved, it unlocked the rest of the signing. So Seth Curry was part of a second wave of move, not just a standalone shooter, but a coordinated decision made to shape the rotation once the key domino fell. And his role is going to reflect that. He's not the sixth man. He's not the first guy off the bench. He's the sniper. He's the spacing weapon you deploy against bench units that overhelp. He's the guy who can come in, hit 3 threes in 7 minutes, and then sit down. He gives you bursts, efficient, brutal bursts of shooting that change the way teams guard the second unit. There's also an underrated benefit here when it comes to injury depth. Steph Curry's had his share of injury concerns, so has Gary Payton II. Having Seth Curry in the mix gives the Warriors insurance, not as a one-to-one replacement, but as a backup plan for perimeter offense. If the rotation tightens because of injuries or rest days, Seth slides in and keeps the perimeter threat alive. That is not a luxury every team has. And in a long season, depth like that matters. The Warriors aren't betting on 35 minutes a night from Seth. They're betting on quality minutes when the opportunity hits. If he plays 12 to 18 minutes and hits 2 or 3 threes in that time, he's done his job. That's the kind of depth you want from a veteran. No wasted movement, no growing pains, just results. Even among all the backcourt bodies, Seth's presence makes the guard depth look stronger. You can afford to rotate guys in and out of the lineup. If Buddy Hield slumps, you've got Seth. If Pods needs development minutes in the G League, you've got Seth. If Melton's wrist acts up again, you've still got Seth, and you know exactly what he's bringing. So while the Warriors do have positional overlap, it's not all redundant. The guards all bring different flavor. Melton brings defense, Hield brings streaky volume, Pods brings versatility, Payton brings pressure, Seth brings accuracy. That's a full spice rack. You're not just stacking 6 of the same guy, you're creating options. That's the key to the Warriors' depth this year. It's not just quantity, it's specialization. They've got a team full of role players who are really good at 1 or 2 things. That's how you survive an 82-game season. That's how you manage injuries, slumps, and load management without falling apart. Seth Curry fits that strategy perfectly. He's not solving every problem. He's not fixing the height issue. He's not playing 30 minutes, but he's giving them 15 of the most efficient minutes you'll find anywhere in the league. He's depth with a purpose. And in a crowded backcourt, that kind of reliability is worth more than raw upside. And he's going to be a great fit with Steph. When Seth Curry steps on the floor with his brother, it's not just 2 guys with the same last name launching threes. It's 2 of the most efficient shooters in NBA history, sharing decades of chemistry, elite basketball IQ, and a natural feel for spacing, rhythm, and timing that no defense can fully prepare for. The Warrior system has always been built on movement, spacing, and chaos. Now imagine inserting 2 Curry brothers into that blender. Defenses are not going to enjoy this. The numbers tell you everything you need to know. Seth's career 3-point percentage is over 43%. Steph's is just a tick below that, at over 42%. That means when they're on the floor together, you've got the 2 most accurate Curry shooters of all time, moving in and out of screens, dragging defenders around the perimeter, and forcing help rotations to break down before the ball even touches the paint. And that's before either one takes a shot. Seth is not just a shooter. He's a guy who knows how to move without the ball in ways that perfectly complement how Steph moves. And that's not accidental. They've been doing this since they were kids, from backyard shootouts to NBA arenas. Their movement patterns have been forged over years of playing together and watching each other work. That familiarity matters. When Steph is coming off a screen and Seth is spacing to the corner, they don't need to look at each other. They already know where the other is going to be. That chemistry speeds up decision making and cuts down on wasted motion. And in the Warriors' offense, That kind of intuitive play is priceless. The system relies on constant movement, quick reads, and unselfish decision-making. Seth fits that model because he doesn't hold the ball. He doesn't pound the dribble. He slides into open space, forces his defender to commit, and punishes mistakes with elite efficiency. That kind of off-ball synergy is rare, even among longtime teammates. For the Curry brothers, it's second nature. Defenders don't get a break when one Curry brother sits down. In fact, they might get even more confused. With multiple ball handlers like Jimmy Butler and Brandon Podds on the floor, Steph can shift off the ball more often, letting Seth slide in as a release valve. If defenses collapse to trap Steph, the kick out to Seth is a guaranteed clean look. And if they don't collapse, they're letting Steph operate one-on-one. That's a lose-lose scenario every single time. Seth's shooting gravity gives the Warriors another way to space the floor, even when the play isn't running through him. You can't leave him. You can't sag off him. You can't help one pass away. And that gives Steph just a little more breathing room to create chaos. That extra half step is all Steph needs to get free. And when defenders panic and over-rotate, the ball swings right back to Seth, who's already locked and loaded. This pairing also lets the Warriors run entirely different looks without changing their identity. When both Curry brothers are on the floor, you can run dual off-ball actions, staggered screens, split cuts, anything that keeps the defense scrambling, and the moment they switch or help in the wrong direction, someone's getting a wide open look. That's not just dangerous, it's demoralizing, because there's no right answer. Their chemistry also reduces turnovers. That's a key point. When two players understand each other's timing and tendencies as well as these two do, passes don't get fumbled, miscommunications don't happen, screens get set at the right angles, cuts happen at the right time. And in a system as intricate as Golden State's, that smoothness keeps the offense humming without wasted possessions. Seth has openly said he's always embraced the Warriors' style of play. He studied it, appreciated it, and now he gets to plug into it. It's not just familiarity, it's fit. He doesn't need to adjust. He already plays the way they play. And that's what makes his chemistry with Steph such a weapon. They're not just comfortable playing together, they're built to thrive together in this exact system. From a matchup standpoint, putting both Curry brothers on the court forces coaches into some ugly decisions. Double Steph, and you're leaving a league leader in three-point percentage wide open. Stick to Seth, and now Steph's got room to work with. Switch screens, and they'll punish mismatches. Go zone, and they'll shoot over it. Ice a screen, and now they've got a 2-on-1. Every option comes with a cost. And while Seth is 35, he doesn't play a style that relies on athleticism. He's not beating people off the dribble. He's using his brain, his timing, and his shot. That means he doesn't wear down in the same way. He can run off screens, hit from deep, and keep spacing perfect without needing the ball. That allows Steph to conserve energy when needed and frees up other playmakers like Butler to operate in the middle of the floor. Even more interesting is how this dynamic affects the second unit. When Steph is on the bench, Seth can anchor the perimeter spacing, but when they're both out there, it's a flamethrower lineup. Think about the pressure it puts on defenses when you've got Seth in one corner, Steph curling off a screen, and someone like Podds handling the ball up top. Everyone's a threat. Everyone can shoot, and the defense is one step behind from the moment the ball is inbound. This kind of chemistry doesn't just appear. It's the result of years of shared instincts. Whether it's cutting off the ball, knowing when to screen, or just passing into the right shooting pocket, these two brothers operate with a synchronicity that's hard to teach. They don't overthink, they just play. And for a team that relies so much on rhythm and flow, that natural chemistry is a built-in advantage. Even in transition, the pairing creates problems. Steph brings the ball up, and defenses automatically sag off the wings to prepare for his pull-up. But now, they've got to account for Seth sprinting into the opposite corner, collapse too much, and it's a skip pass for 3 points. Stay too wide, and Steph drives straight into the lane. The spacing becomes impossible to cover without leaving someone open. The truth is, not every backcourt duo works just because the names sound good together. But in this case, the fit is as real as the numbers. Seth's shooting is elite. Steph's gravity is unmatched. Together, they amplify each other. It's not about taking turns. It's about constant motion, shared understanding, and relentless pressure on the defense. That kind of connection doesn't just improve offense, it creates an identity. The Curry brothers are now not just family, but teammates in the same uniform, running the same system, in the same arena. That kind of symmetry is rare. And while Seth won't be playing 35 minutes, every minute he does play alongside Steph turns into a high-efficiency, high-IQ masterclass in spacing and timing. And in those tight playoff games where every possession counts, that chemistry becomes even more valuable. There's no guesswork, no misreads, just two shooters who know how to move, how to pass, and how to hit the biggest shots in the biggest moments. That's what makes the addition so powerful. Not just what Seth brings on his own, but what happens when he and Steph are in sync. It's also a rare situation where the emotional bond actually enhances the basketball product, because these two aren't just teammates. They're brothers. They fought in driveways, practiced together since childhood, studied film together, and supported each other through entire careers. That level of trust is unshakable. And when the game is on the line, you want guys who trust each other like that. That kind of trust builds confidence. It leads to faster decisions, more fluid play, less second guessing, and in a system where fractions of a second matter, that's the edge. That's what makes the Curry-Curry connection more than just a feel-good story. It's a real tactical advantage. So whether it's early season rotations or deep playoff runs, having Seth on the floor with Steph gives the Warriors a totally new wrinkle, one built on chemistry, history, and elite level shot make. The spacing gets better, the decisions get faster, the shots fall, and the defense starts to fall apart. That's the kind of chemistry you can't buy. You have to live it. And the Warriors just brought it into their locker room. But then we got his fit with the other star. Seth Curry's fit alongside Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler is less about individual stats and more about how cleanly his skill set slots in with theirs. On paper, it looks like a pretty odd trio. One elite shooter, one non-shooter defensive anchor, and one physical slasher who loves to live in the mid-range, but in practice, that's exactly why it works. It's the gaps in their games that allow each of them to operate in their own space. And Seth's role is dead simple. Stretch the floor, move constantly, punish mistakes, and open the game up for the two veteran stars who love to operate in tight areas. Start with Draymond. He's been the offensive hub of the Warriors system for years, not because he scores, but because he thinks two steps ahead. He plays from the elbow, orchestrates movement, finds cutters, and reads defenders like a chessboard. His passing windows are built on space, and that's exactly what Seth creates. With Curry spotting up in the corner or relocating along the arc, defenders can't help off. They just can't. Seth shot 45.6% from three last season, which led the entire league. That is not someone you rotate late to. That's someone who destroys rotation. So now, when Draymond gets the ball and surveys the floor, he's not working with a clogged paint. He's got space. That allows him to find cutters like Jimmy Butler, who thrives off smart backdoor timing. Or it gives him the lane to dribble handoff with Steph if both Currys are on the floor. Either way, Seth's man is glued to him, and that means one less help defender, one less hand in the passing lane, one less recovery body. That's a massive advantage for a playmaker like Draymond, who needs that half second of hesitation from the defense to slip in a bounce pass or fire a skip to the weak side. Then there's Jimmy Butler. His entire offensive game is built around drawing contact, attacking the rim, and exploiting mismatches. He's not living behind the arc, he wants to get downhill. But to do that, the floor has to be clean. Jimmy draws help from the weak side every time he puts his head down. That's where Seth comes in. When Jimmy drives and the defense rotates, they're gambling on someone missing a three. You leave Seth Curry, and that gamble gets expensive fast. This is where the chemistry really shows up. Jimmy is a smart passer. He knows when to kick out, and now he's got one of the best catch-and-shoot threats in the entire league standing ready. Defenders are going to be caught in no man's land. Do they rotate to help on Butler and risk giving up a wide-open three? Or do they stay home and let Butler muscle his way to the rim or draw contact for free throws? There's no good answer. And it works in reverse, too. When the defense tries to take away Seth's shot by sticking to him like glue, Butler gets more one-on-one chances. Same for Draymond, operating in the post or on the short roll. That shooting gravity creates an entire offense, not just for Seth, but for everyone around him. It doesn't matter if he touches the ball every possession. What matters is that the defense always knows exactly where he is. Now think about lineup combinations. The Warriors are likely to stagger minutes, which means there will be long stretches where Steph is off the floor. That's been a problem for years. When Steph sits, the scoring slows, the spacing collapses, the offense becomes sluggish. But now they can throw out a lineup with Draymond, Jimmy, and Seth, and suddenly the non-Steph minutes don't look so scary. Draymond still runs the offense, Jimmy still draws contact, and Seth is there to keep the spacing real. That's a big deal. Last season, the Warriors' offensive rating dropped by 16 points per 100 possessions when Steph sat. That's not just a drop, it's a collapse. But now, they've got a shooter who doesn't need volume to be deadly. Seth can take 4 or 5 shots and change the entire geometry of a quarter. There's also a mental benefit. Draymond and Jimmy are two of the most competitive, intense players in the league. They're high IQ, high effort, high emotion guys, and you're adding Seth, a low-ego veteran who knows exactly how to fill a role. He doesn't need the ball. He doesn't need to take 10 shots. He's not barking for touches. He's just running to the right spot, spacing the floor, and letting the stars do their thing. That's chemistry without conflict. Now let's talk about movement. The Warriors' offense isn't about set plays. It's about reads, flow, and off-ball chaos. Draymond thrives in that environment. Jimmy can adapt to it, and Seth was basically born for it. His movement without the ball is one of the most underrated aspects of his game. He cuts, relocates, loops off pin downs, and never stays still. That creates a ripple effect. When Seth runs off a screen, defenders have to chase. That pulls help defenders away from Jimmy's drives and Draymond's short rolls. And when the defense reacts late, they're toast. Even in transition, Seth adds another layer. Jimmy loves to push the pace after a rebound or steal. Now imagine him flying down the court with Draymond trailing and Seth sprinting to the corner. Defenders have to sprint back and cover the paint and the perimeter at the same time. Most teams can't do both. That's where Seth makes his mark. Not by dunking, not by driving, but by being the guy you can't leave open, even for a split second. And when both Curry brothers are on the floor with Draymond and Jimmy, that's a nightmare for opposing coaches. Now you've got two deadly shooters running wild off ball, one elite passer in Draymond orchestrating everything, and one elite slasher in Butler waiting to punish every defensive mistake. You can't switch everything because Jimmy will post you up. You can't go under screens because both Currys will shoot over them. You can't help off anyone, and that means every defender is on an island. Defensively, Seth's not the guy you're depending on to lock up, but that's why having Draymond and Jimmy matters. They take the toughest matchups. They anchor the defense, and that allows Seth to hide on weaker offensive players and conserve energy. The Warriors don't need him to get steals or contest shots at the rim. They need him to space the floor and hit open threes. Let Jimmy and Draymond worry about the other end. That's how the roles are built. It's also worth noting that all three of these guys are veterans. They've seen every coverage, they've been through playoff wars, and they don't need to be told where to stand. That kind of intelligence keeps the offense moving, even when the plays break down. If Draymond gets doubled, he knows where Seth is. If Jimmy drives into traffic, he knows where Seth has relocated. And if the defense rotates late, Seth already knows when to shoot or swing the ball. That's trust. And that kind of trust doesn't need a play call. It just happens. Even in crunch time, that trio offers flexibility. You've got one of the best decision makers in the league in Draymond. You've got one of the most clutch shot creators in Jimmy. And you've got one of the most efficient catch and shoot players in Seth. Whether it's a sideline out of bounds play or a broken possession with 5 seconds left, you've got multiple ways to get a good look. And all of them are based on the fact that Seth doesn't need the ball to be effective. What makes this work is the balance. Draymond sets the table. Jimmy attacks the defense. Seth stretches the floor. None of them overlap in a way that clogs the offense. And that means the Warriors can create fluid lineups without giving up spacing, playmaking, or shot creation. It's not about stacking stars, it's about fitting pieces together. And Seth is a perfect piece next to two guys who love to attack but need room to operate. This isn't about turning Seth into a star. It's about using him as a tool that enhances everything else. And with Draymond and Jimmy doing the heavy lifting on both ends, Seth's job becomes simple. Make the shot. Keep moving. Keep spacing. Do the thing you've been doing your entire career and let the stars benefit from it. The result is a trio that gives the Warriors a new identity when Steph rests. It's slower, smarter, more physical, but still dangerous from deep. It's a lineup that can grind out stops and then make you pay with a back-breaking three. It's balanced, veteran-heavy, and designed to punish defensive mistakes without taking unnecessary risks. That's what Seth Curry brings next to Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler. Not flash, not highlights, just spacing, IQ, and ruthless efficiency. It's the kind of basketball that doesn't make the top 10 plays of the night, but wins games when it matters. And for a team that's still chasing another title, that's exactly the kind of depth they needed.